Welcome back, you guys, to the Young Reason podcast. Today, we're going to talk about the Nolan Wells case. Again, a story that has, dominated the headlines and social media, since he went missing on Horn Island this past July. For a lot of people, the facts don't seem to add up. A young athlete, a group of friends, and a tragic ending that left everyone asking what really happened. So, to help us out today with some answers, I'm joined by Jack Palmeri, a veteran criminal defense attorney and a former Brooklyn prosecutor who has spent 2 decades inside the courtroom. He's looked at the evidence. He believes the narratives. He believes the narratives online don't trump the legal reality, which is okay, which is great. So, Jack, thanks for being here.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, man, for sure. So, there's so much, conflicting info about this entire case. You're a former prosecutor, so you already know what the first question out the gate is going to be. From a legal standpoint, what is the very first thing you look at to decide if a death is an accident or a crime?
Who did it? I think that's the number one question that no one's been able to answer. Who did it? If it's self-inflicted or if it appears self-inflicted versus if it was by an act of God, if a tree fell on someone, or if another person or persons were involved. And then from there, you start, vetting it out to see if this was accidental, intentional, if this was natural, unnatural, and then if it was legal or not.
Okay, that's a great answer. Do you think, as also, once again, a former prosecutor, do you think there's any holes in this case?
Yeah, from a prosecutor's perspective, this investigation, this case is riddled with holes. That's their problem. That's why you've not seen this yet go to a grand jury. That's why you've not seen any public statements made affirming that the investigation is coming to a close in a fashion that a lot of people are looking for it to fall upon. They don't have, the second biggest or the biggest problem in this particular case is they don't know where Nolan died. And if you don't know where he died, you don't know where he was, who he was with, you don't know how it could have happened. You don't know if there's a motive or not. I mean, they're so in the dark on this case. They don't know where to start because nothing is connecting.
Yeah, I will say that. I'll be the first to admit it's like, obviously when the report first came out in July, everybody is just like, the white boys did it. The white boys did it. They're white. He's black. He's the only black friend. And it's like, I always been one of those people who have been like, let the evidence come out, let it go through trial. Let's not just say they did it because they're white, because that's like literally racist. But I will say, Jack, I'm a little, stuck. I'm a little stuck when it comes to this case because the number one thing that stands out to me is him leaving his phone. And anything I say, you can confirm or deny.
Sure.
It's like, obviously, more and you've been in, the courtroom and stuff. So yeah, that's where I'm stuck on. How does a 18-year-old kid just leave his phone on a boat? Like, I can't see in any generation. I mean, well, in this generation, an 18-year-old kid doing that.
So I think that's a great point. First, I give you a lot of credit for being so open-minded in your approach. I think it's smart. I think everyone should be. It's so easy to get emotionally involved in this case for a lot of reasons, depending on what your background is. And I really applaud you for that. It's hard
Thank
for
you.
a lot of people on social media to take that kind of a stand because, again, it's so people feel so strongly and relate so much to Nolan and to his family, to the situation. And I think that's what makes it so important to take a little more time, a little more objective view. Sometimes in cases like this, I try to say, just to understand the situation, make everyone a neutral color. This is a young man who was with presumably his friends. There's been questions of how genuine that is. But he was with 4 individuals, 3 come back. We're one person short. Obviously, you start there. To focus so much on the fact that he is black and they are white, which is factually accurate, makes it seem that now we're saying it's racially motivated, which it could have been. I mean, we've seen that kind of tragic history before in this country. So racially motivated crimes are not unheard of when you have one person of a race and multiple people of another. We've seen that happen. And that's why it's so important to take your time with that. To your question with the phone, my thoughts go back to the fact that, what is a boat surrounded by? Water. Where do phones do really poorly in? Water, right? I'm in South Florida, so we're near the beaches, right? People love to go to the beach. I seem to be just a little bit older than you. I probably have a few decades on you.
Yeah.
And young people go with their phones to the beach. Where they leave their phones? In their bag, with their cooler, with their friends, not near the water. Why? Because the one thing no young person or anyone now wants to do is lose access to their phones. They lose their photos, they lose their contacts, they lose everything. And this is essentially a boat party. Everyone's coming in and out of the water, in and out of pools, they're drinking, they're effectively at the beach. And so before we get into the fact that Nolan is gone, it becomes less unusual. I haven't heard anyone focusing on, did anyone else have their phones with them or not? The reason why Nolan's phone and keys become so obvious because he never got to come back and retrieve them. But no one's gotten into what were everyone else doing. Was everyone leaving their phones and keys in a boat, in a house, in a room? It makes sense when you see pictures. Everyone's in a pool partying. Everyone's on the deck of a boat, and you would leave it there because you don't want anything to happen to it. You don't go into the water with anything other than your trunks.
Right.
And so I think people are forgetting why Nolan was at the island in the first place. It was a big pool party.
Okay. Great answer.
So I guess from that, and listen, we're here to hear different views, hear different perspectives, learn something from you, learn something from me. I invite everyone to think, what would they do if they were at the beach and at the pool? You're at a barbecue party and people are jumping out of the pool. Are you going to have your phone right by the water? Maybe are you going to have your keys by the ocean?
Right.
Maybe not.
Yeah. So the independent autopsy came back as undetermined. So once again, in a courtroom, does undetermined, does it help the prosecution, or is it completely dead the case?
Yeah, I think this is one of the biggest issues for the prosecution. As a defense attorney, I am using that independent medical examination conclusion as my canary in the coal mines. That shows you their own doctors, their own medical expert could not determine the cause of death. It means you cannot rule anything out. The prosecutor has the burden of the obligation of establishing and telling a jury, and by proxy us, one version of events happened and no other. Once you get into probabilities, possibilities, that is the de facto definition of reasonable doubt. The prosecutor is obligated to prove their case beyond and to the exclusion of every other reasonable doubt that no, this is what happened. And the autopsy all but blows it out of the water. It says definitively, we don't know what happened. It is not ruled out a homicide. It is not ruled out an accident. It is not ruled out a drowning. It is not ruled out anything. And as a prosecutor, that's to be so difficult to get around. It'd be easier if they had, well, I don't know, any other evidence or any other factor, but they have nothing, and this makes it worse. And for those who think Nolan was taken from us by unnatural means, this does not help your cause at all. Effectively, your own expert said, I don't know. And now the prosecutor has a way out. The IME, the medical examiner, has a way out. They just say, if their own doctor couldn't conclude it, why do you think we'd be able to do any better? The doctor they employed is one of the best in the country. He knows what side he's on. He also has a medical obligation and reputation. And he said, look, I can't get there. That's a real problem.
Okay, I agree. So to clarify, right? You believe the friends that are involved are innocent, not because of, like, is there evidence that you think makes them innocent, or is it the lack of evidence that you will say makes them innocent?
Right. So, what you're talking about is very nuanced, and I want to be clear together because I know a lot of people are hanging on every word I say on this kind of stuff. So it's not that I think that his friends are innocent. And again, I want to preface that I am not approaching this from a moral standpoint. I'm not approaching this from an ethical standpoint. I'm not approaching this by what I feel in my gut or what history tells me. I'm going by a criminal legal standpoint. And so what I'm saying is there's not enough evidence to compel me beyond a reasonable doubt that these four men on the boat, these four young men, are guilty of some kind of intentional or reckless or act that caused Nolan's death. I cannot rule it out because I was not there. In my career, in my life, I've seen a lot of crazy things happen. I've seen a lot of things that you would say that you wouldn't believe it if you didn't see it type scenarios. I won't rule it out. I don't know these young men. I can't say what they are or not capable of. What I am saying is the evidence does not support a charge.
Okay, I will say I agree, because right now there is no substantiating, like, concrete evidence right there that's like, all right, lock them up. You know, they didn't do that. They obviously did it. I will say there is one evidence going around, and this is how me and you kind of connected. The transcript, the audio transcript, the enhanced audio transcript. I want to say that. I have to clarify that. The enhanced audio transcript. It's out, Jack. You're saying it's fake. A couple more people think it's fake. Right now, I'm willing to hear your opinion, but to me, in the transcript, when you get to like that fourth line, Jack, I feel like is like, okay, so you hear a couple words that are pretty clear, like, is he dead? You can hear that pretty clearly in the transcript. Get the F up towards the end where he's screaming, get the F up, get the F up. So from your point, how would you say the audio is fake?
Sure. So first, the audio itself, the content is completely plausible. I've heard a lot of incriminating audios. I've seen a lot of incriminating videos. People who didn't realize they were being recorded or didn't realize they were being picked up. A lot of people I've seen in my history who wish they hadn't said certain things at certain times because it came in 4K, right? So what we've heard is plausible. What I contest is the authenticity of the source. Okay. So before we get, a bunch of us, you, me, everyone else, we're all these internet detectives now. We're all these keyboard sleuths. We're going to crack this case wide open because apparently between Ben Crump and his super team and the prosecutor's office, no one else can do it without us, right? So here we are. We're all pitching in. Here's my concern. To have scrubbed any kind of evidence, first you need to have a verified, certified source material. Right now, only one person or one entity that I know of has a certified, authentic source material, and that is the prosecutor's office, the investigators and the attorneys, and basically the government. Okay, not even Ben Crump's team, from what I understand, would have access and would have been given a copy of a genuine copy of where the call originated to and originated from. Okay, so that being said, I don't know what copy was used. I can't say how this engineer, this young lady who came out of nowhere, came to her scrub having this conversation, but I can tell you how I would fake it. And it's kind of like a magician, it's a Houdini trick. Before I scrub the video or the audio, I have an audio where the extra layer is already embedded. Okay, it's already in there to be found. It's like going in the backyard, burying a dog bone in the grass for my dog to go find it later. And then when he goes find it, voila, I found the bone. Right, because I put it there.
Right.
That is how I would fake this. Okay, we don't know the source she used. And it was very interesting that she harped on she did not use AI, which would have been an independent, neutral, uh, tool to scrub it. She did it on her own. I cannot say with certainty she had an agenda, but it seems to be that she was looking for something, knew where to find it, and if I'm a cynic, because she knew it was there. I go back to what I've not seen is I've not seen anyone that I am relying on verify or give any kind of credibility to her enhanced audio. I've seen no one from the state, which is very easy to criticize. Why would they? And if you believe there's a conspiracy, if you believe they're covering for the white community, then of course they're not going to give any credibility to this woman. But more importantly for me, you've heard no one from Ben Crump's team give this girl any kind of a shout out. They've not gone and retained
Yeah.
her. They've not gone on independently and said, we have this enhanced audio.
Yeah,
They've
I've done
not
research.
recreated it,
Yeah, I've done
right?
research searching up the transcript and who has it. I haven't seen one article that says Ben Crump has access to the transcript, or he even
No.
said like, "Oh yeah, like this is genuine. Like, listen, you know."
Right. I mean, and this is a man who, think what you will of him, good or bad, but he is here to bring light to the situation. He's to bring attention, right? To bring a spotlight on Mississippi and the state attorney's office. We just spoke a moment ago. He went and got his own independent autopsy done. We're talking high level forensics here, right? Did his own report. You think he's not trying to analyze the audio or turn over any stone he can? Of course he is. And for him not to come out and say, I've got this, gives me great, great pause. It's in the weeks since this July 4th, you see a lot of people getting very anxious, a lot of people wanting to see things happen. There are death threats on all sides now. All sides. If anyone even makes a comment about the case, you have influencers now getting death threats just by
Yeah,
reporting. I mean, this
yeah.
is I don't
Yeah, my
condone
mom
that. I
was
don't.
my mom was
That's
scared for me to even do this podcast, bro. For real.
right
She's like, I don't even want you doing it. I'm like, why not? She's like, you don't understand.
because people are just getting so invested in it,
Yeah.
and that's my concern. Is at the minute this woman releases audio, she does a GoFundMe. I thought that was kind of interesting, and then of course she gets dead there. So my criticism is I haven't seen the material independently or by someone credible authenticated. No one's given it a seal of approval, and that is why at this stage I am not buying into it.
Okay. That was a great breakdown. I would say like this would be the last follow-up question about specifically the transcript. I would say, how would you decipher like which ones are real? Like which words are real and which words are like, okay, like that was obviously like, since this is enhanced, she like turned it up a little bit so it could sound like, movement, a lot of movement. How do you decipher which one?
Yeah, I'm not giving any of it credibility. I if we're gonna take any of the audios at face value, for me, it's only the ones that first came out. Not because they protect the kids, not because it hasn't been, because it hasn't been touched. That is what theoretically would have been heard. And that's the closest thing to the genuine article. If there is, in a lot of these cases, there will be a breakdown of a lot of digital evidence. On both sides, defense attorneys will go and say, if a prosecutor's a text message, I want the meta source. I want to see the data of how it was saved, where it came from, where it went to. I want to see the creation date versus a modified date. I mean, there's a lot of embedded information in any kind of digital evidence. And I want to see that whatever we use to really dive into, that we're using a genuine source. Someone verifies that for me, have at it. Like, I can't say there's nothing in the background. I can't say there's not. What I'm saying is I don't know this woman from a hole in the wall. She has no credentials. She has no association to this case. And the entire country's watching, and only her in her bedroom with her, you know, herself scrub found this audio. That's it, it would be very dangerous to be wrong about that.
That is true. That's defamation lawsuit signed up and many other things. And I will agree, other than, a couple social media posts that are like from unverified sources, the transcript isn't anywhere else. Like they haven't talked about it in the court. Never heard Ben Crump talk about it. I've only heard it be like debunked by you and a couple other people. But I do want to talk about the threats going on both sides. Now, I've always been very outspoken on, political violence. I feel like political violence just never, ever, ever a thing on neither side. I don't care if you're Republican or Democrat. I don't care if you're black. I don't care if you're white. Like, just because you disagree with somebody or the case isn't going how you want the case to go, you don't just start threatening the bomb. And like, I never liked that. I know one of the judges got a bomb threat. Is that true?
That's what I've heard as well. Yes, that the judge, who is the mother of one of the boys, who is entwined in this case, that she's one of the many people who have gotten possibly a very legitimate or a concerned threat.
Okay, that was another question that I was going to ask you. You being a former prosecutor, how do you feel about the stepmom being one of the judges?
Yeah.
Do you feel like that's, well, a lot of people online feel like that's completely unfair. They should at least have just her removed as a judge. How do you feel?
Well, so I don't know that she's related to the case outside of her being a mother. She happens to be a judge. And again, right now there is no case in the courts, right? This is still in an investigative phase. There are no attorneys involved in a courtroom. There's no prosecutors, no defense attorney. There's no suspect. There's no one charged. There's no one accused formally in a legal sense. There's no judge presiding. There's no case number. It's just an investigative phase. They said that prosecutors are looking into it for a grand jury. I have not heard that she's been tied to any of the legal mechanics involved in the investigation. And to the extent she ever could have been, and she definitely, if she did not self-recuse, she would be removed. I mean, the conflict is obvious. She's a potential witness. She's a potential conspirator, if you really want to go that far. And we could, she's potentially involved in this. So, no, she is hands off. They have to quarantine her professionally, and anyone associated to her. They have to show integrity to the extent they still can. A lot of people are highly questioning the competency, the ability, and the neutrality of Jackson County. So she's out. She's out all the way. I do agree with the other point you said. I think there's no place for political violence. I do not believe in violence for silencing the opposition. What you and I are doing here, this is the point. We're having a civil and intelligent conversation. We're sharing different views. Hopefully everyone's taking something away. You don't have to agree with what I say, but I hope that makes you think about something in a way you hadn't. And you can still come to the same conclusion, but to do it in a sophisticated manner, to just threaten everyone on all sides, it accomplishes nothing. And I've said it insults Nolan. We all came together on this because a young black man is dead, and he shouldn't be. He was in college. He's just beginning his life. I mean, I'm a father of 2 young children. I sympathize very greatly on that human level. That's why we all came here. And to see it just be degraded to like anyone who says something gets threatened, that's not what this was about. And it's not going to solve anything. It's not going to prove anything. But yeah, that judge, to the extent that she's inserted herself, all she could be at best or at worst is a witness or a suspect.
Okay. It's not really like, I can obviously rebut you, but like your experience, like specifically on the case, and like your experience being a former prosecutor for 20 years, I feel like people have to start taking what you're saying way more seriously and not just some guy on a podcast.
Rebut me. I'm still just a guy. I'm just a guy. I've been known to be wrong before. I'll be wrong again. I'm not saying I am the end-all, be-all source. I welcome the back and forth. Listen, challenge me. You may teach me something. It's happened before. I'm old. Being old doesn't make me smart. It just makes me old. So it's I want to hear other people's opinions, and I hope they listen to mine. I do ultimately want to see answers. I want answers for Nolan's family, for all of us. I want there to be a sense of closure. If justice is merited, I want to see that too. I have no affiliation to any of the other kids, so they're not my clients. So, I'm an outsider like you, and I can, critique it. But, again, everything I say is not because it's what I want to see happen or what I'm happy to see it happen. I'm just trying to share with people why things are not happening in the justice system the way they may want it to.
Okay. Okay. So, all right. So then, what would you say what would you say would be, the minimum amount of physical evidence enough to even get an indictment on this?
Well, we have a body, right? So we know someone is dead. So I would want one of a few things, and they could be any of them. If you had a motive, then you could tie someone to that motive, right?
Yeah.
I'd like to see someone tied to the location of Nolan's last moments, right? Because whoever is the last person there becomes one of the easiest suspects. I've commented elsewhere, if I was the attorney of these young men, I would have told them, don't touch the phone. Don't touch the keys. I don't want your DNA on possible evidence because it puts you as the last person to the location. I've said repeatedly elsewhere, someone I'd be looking at a lot is the young man who made the call to his mother, who's a judge. Because the question I have repeatedly is, which there's no answer yet, how did he know to make that call? From what I can gather, he is the last known person to have knowledge of Nolan. How did he know to call his mom to have her tell police, you should be looking for Nolan, right?
Right.
Give me a person near the body, give me someone with a reason to see Nolan gone. One of those two really, or give me a cause of death. If you give me a cause of death, we can start ruling out men to women based on the amount of damage to Nolan, which we know there is none. We can weed out left-handed to right-handed people. We can weed out people of a certain height based on the trajectory of an injury. Give me any of those, and we can start to narrow the pool of suspects. Right now, everyone on that island is a suspect, and vicariously, no one's a suspect right now. Give me something where I can start to narrow the pool.
Okay. Okay. Do you feel like is there a fear that possibly these boys get sent to jail strictly because of the media? They're like, oh, y'all better not let these boys go after, this black kid has been found dead. You gonna let these 5 white boys go? Is there a fear that they might get put in jail? Is there a fear in the courtroom that they might actually go to jail just because of the media?
Clearly, Jackson County investigators, prosecutors have a lot of pressure right now to find answers. And for a lot of those people that want answers, they also want a specific outcome. If you believe that this county is capable of planting evidence or forcing an issue, maybe. I think the bigger question is going to be because there are elements of the process where the rest of us come into play as jurors, a jury at a trial, but a grand jury at the initial stage. So the prosecutor can kind of play fast and loose with the responsibility. They can give it to a grand jury, and if there is an indictment and someone is charged with a crime, the prosecutor can say, look, it wasn't my decision. It was a jury of the peers. And if that grand jury comes back with no indictment against anyone, the prosecutor say, it's not my fault. I gave the case to a jury of your peers and they found no crime. And then people will get into, well, what was the makeup of the jury pool? Was it black? Was it white? Was it young? Was it old? It was never going to be a fair process from the beginning. I think it's fair and it's right that the investigators should be doing everything they can to find out what happened to Nolan. I hate the idea on so many levels that we don't know because for the parents, again, that would give them some kind of closure, whether they accepted the reason or not. For the rest of us, it would be some kind of some kind of an explanation. young men of Nolan's physical health, we don't just lose them. Now accidents can happen. Again, I'm in South Florida, and being by the ocean, the riptides are a real thing. I've seen a lot of sad news headlines where a lot of young people that look like you, healthy young men and women, and get taken out because the riptide takes you out by your ankle, takes you out from under, and pulls you right out. That happens. There was an incident that's happened with a young black father in Maine, I think, saving his two sons from the riptide. He got taken out. Those of us by the ocean, by the water, it's I don't want to say common, but we know it's possible. But I want to see answers for the family. I want to see some kind of conclusion. I want to see that you spoke to every witness. You checked every camera. You checked the GPS for every boat. You vetted every alibi. You cross-referenced every story. I want to see that. I've not heard enough from Jackson County of what their efforts are. And I just want to hear you're making continued efforts, that you've not already turned this into a cold case. Outside of that, at this stage, I want the process to play out. And if that means someone gets accused and someone gets arrested, then let the process play out. I want to know why. I don't think it's going to be an issue of we did it just because you have some defense attorney like me jumping up and down saying just because isn't enough. You have to have some kind of reasonable suspicion, probable cause just to make the arrest, bring it to a grand jury.
Yeah.
There's got to be something. So I don't think it'll be as because we just had to, but do something.
Okay. So we're gonna begin wrapping up, but usually on here, Jack, we do rapid fire questions, towards the end of the show. So
Okay.
let's get some rapid fire questions up in here. We have some people from online who dropped their questions in the inbox. This is from my friend Lawrence. Shout out Lawrence. How did the 5 kids, get access to such a good lawyer? Now, I'm not asking these questions. These are other people. The questions that I have are going to come after this.
Sure. So, Lawrence, thank you for the question. I think we're talking about the defamation lawyer that came on. That's the lawyer that helped Trump with his defamation case. One of a couple of ways. One, we do know that the boys, like many people involved, have started GoFundMe accounts, and so they've raised money in part because they are being accused in the court of law, in the court of public opinion, not the court of law, and there are a lot of serious allegations being put to them by everyone but police. Or so they could have retained him with money, or that attorney being savvy sees, hey, we're all talking about it every day, and it's great free publicity and press coverage, and I'm going to go down and throw my hat in the ring because I just like to squabble. It could be as easy as that. A lot of big players in here. Everyone's getting a lot of free advertising. It could be that. It could be the money. One of those two things, probably.
Okay. Great answer. Social media deletions. Does wiping a social media account look as bad to a jury as it does to the public?
It's hard to say because we don't know what was deleted. You have to show what was deleted to show why it's even relevant. It could have been I posted a picture of me looking really even fatter than usual, and it happened to be the same time Nolan died, and I didn't want anyone to see my fat face. I deleted it. For it to be relevant, for it to make it to a jury, you got to show, why it's relevant. Why are we talking about it at all? Because it was a picture of me with Nolan, and I deleted it, and it showed a particular location that no one knew to look. Otherwise, social media is very tricky. People more your age than mine, you grew up with this as part of your life. They put their lives on social media. I think a lot of people share more than they should for a lot of reasons. And it's a matter of, you got to put it in context. To know it looks bad, you have to tell me what it was and why you deleted it.
Okay. The GPS timeline. We've seen, data suggesting, the boat's timeline doesn't really match what the friends say halfway, like their story. If it goes to trial, how does a defense lawyer, which you are, but not their defense lawyer, but you are a former defense lawyer or defense lawyer, how does a defense lawyer explain away bad math?
Sure. One, that's why I have the GPS. They're not mathematicians. They're 20 years old. They're a bunch of idiots. That's why we have computers to do the math for us. From what I've seen, the time it took for them to leave the mainland to get to the island is fairly consistent with the time it took them to leave the island to get back to the mainland, considering they were taking on water and going a little slower in the return, which makes sense. Plus, if you look at the trajectory, the breadcrumbs, the mapping of where they went, the route seems consistent. So the fact that the kids got the time wrong, for all we know, they could have been drunk, they could have been had sun exposure, and I don't rely on subjective memory where I have objective data like a computer.
Yeah, that I will say that's a huge factor when it comes to this entire situation is the drinking. Is the drinking. A lot of people, as much as like one of them probably won't say it. I'm pretty sure one of them don't even remember what happened that night. So yeah, drinking is a huge factor, especially with all the screaming going on and the calls and etc. Apologize for that. But let's go on to the next one. We've seen threats against the witnesses. Does public pressure like that actually prevent the truth from coming out?
Absolutely, we've seen it time and time again. It's literally witness intimidation. You have someone who knows something that, if shared, helps one side or the other, and now it's not worth it for me anymore. I'm not an accused, I'm not a victim, I'm just a person who knew something, and I've got a family to take care of and consider, and I don't want my family being threatened. And you know what? I don't remember anymore. It absolutely happens. It's a real thing. It's one of the reasons why people should not be involving themselves with these kind of threats. If you want the truth to come out, you have to let the truth come out. No one's going to want to do it if you force them to.
I agree. A lot of people think, the caller sounded super calm answering the phone, like mysteriously calm. A lot of people don't like that, but we're not lawyers. We're not former prosecutors. How would you say do you think that's guilty behavior or is it smart? How do you look at it from a defense attorney?
Yeah. I mean, so if I'm a defense attorney, I'm going to say it almost sounds like he's acting because he's innocent, because he had nothing to worry about. He could be so calm because he was calm because he had nothing to hide. So that's one way to say it. Secondly, we don't know. I don't know these young men from before this incident. I don't know what they act like normally. I don't know if they normally talk fast like I do, if they're normally very, very calm and relaxed anyway. Again, maybe they're under the influence of narcotics and they're just very lethargic. None of us know. None of us know what condition he was in at the time and what he's like normally. But it's very consistent if you believe that young man was not involved in any criminality. And if you do, I don't know what kind of criminal history he has to be able to be so calm and confident when you have who's supposed to be a dear friend of yours on a boat dying, and you have the time it takes to get from the island to shore to figure it out. That is either possibly a very innocent man or a criminal mastermind. I'm not sure it's the latter.
Okay. The friends had Nolan's phone and didn't give it to his parents immediately. From a defense perspective, because you're a defense attorney, from a defense perspective, is that guilty? Is that guilty behavior? Is that also guilty behavior?
No. I would say it's one of two things. If they had spoken to an attorney like myself, I would have told them, you don't touch it. It's not your job. And particularly in this case, it appeared to me that Nolan's mother was accusing them of wrongdoing out the gate. She was already antagonistic with them. As soon as she heard her son was missing, she was already accusing them. And I would have said the best thing they could have done was distance themselves from anything else, because it wouldn't have helped them. It would only hurt them. Again, if they had touched the phone, then we wouldn't know who touched the phone before them, right? If I put my DNA on top of yours, your DNA is potentially gone. Okay? Don't touch it. Don't involve yourself with the evidence, because now it would have made it easier to accuse them of tampering with evidence. She's already made allegations that texts and photographs were deleted from the phone. Well, how easy would it have been to say they did it if they had touched the phone? I think they did the right thing. They're not law enforcement. They're not investigators. They're already suspects in public opinion. They have to think for themselves as well at this point, unfortunately. And, it's the right thing to do for them.
Okay. The big question, the last and final question of the show. If you were sitting on the jury right now, today, with only the evidence currently public, would you vote to convict or acquit?
Not guilty. There's too much doubt. There's too many plausible explanations. Was it the 4 friends in the boat? Was it another guy who was interested in the same girl he was? Was it an accident? There are too many possibilities, and that's more than one, and that's one too many. By law, it has to be at this stage with nothing else, not guilty.
Okay. I know I said that was the last question, but I have a follow-up about the girl.
Go ahead.
I have a follow-up about the girl. So I was just watching the Brandon Tatum interview with the 5 boys. But one of the boys said at first, like when everything was first coming out, at first he said Nolan was with an unknown girl. But then in the interview, he just said Nolan was with, it started with a K. The girl's name starts with a K. That's what I'm going to say. He said Nolan was with her. How it go from unknown girl to now you know who the girl is?
Because he always knew who the girl was. Because these kids are not in a position to be giving the interviews they're giving. If you want to say you think they're idiots, that would be fair. If you want to say they're doing themselves a disservice, that would be fair. If you want to say they are incriminating themselves more in public opinion, that would be fair. But they are not equipped for this kind of limelight, for this kind of scrutiny. And it was just dumb. Because the rest of us know the girl. She's been identified. We've seen pictures of her. You want to play this loosey-goosey game? What are you doing, guy? I think it was. I don't think it goes to his guilt of a crime. I think it goes to just his lack of sophistication and maybe becoming a little insensitive to what the stakes really are here.
Right. Okay. No more follow-ups. I promise.
Okay.
Jack Palmeri, thank you so much for coming on, man, breaking down the law and giving us your perspective on the case. This really helped. It opened my mind a lot. I know my grandmom's watching this. I hope her mind probably opened up a little bit, because my grandmom, her opinion on this case is like, you know what I mean? And you know, my grandmom is very into politics, been into politics for years. But my mom, if you're watching this, have an open mind. Have an open mind. He's on to something. Nothing he's saying is a lie. I've been doing the research, and yeah, I mean, we agreed, we disagreed. It was a great conversation, Jack.
Listen, it was my pleasure. Thank you so much. I really enjoy your podcast. Keep it up. Do not stop. Okay. This was really great for me too. I really do get something out of talking to people like you and having this dialogue. I think it's important for all of us. It was my honor to be here. I hope your fans and your audience enjoyed it as well. And you have a friend and a fan in me. And I'm a phone call away if you ever need me.
Hey, thank you, man, so much.
You're very welcome.
Hope you stay in tune for all future podcasts. And even, you know, if this does go to trial or however else this case goes, we'll bring you back part 2, man.
I'll be here. You know where to find me.
All right, man. Thank you so much. You guys,
thank you so much.
Palmeri, former defense prosecutor of 20 years and former criminal defense attorney. Check it with him. Jack Palmeri on Instagram, Jack Palmeri on YouTube. And yeah, this man's legit.
God bless. Thank you.
God bless y'all. Thank you.